Great.
Can I go ahead?
You sure can.
Okay. Sorry, I had to leave my office and come out to my car. Something's up with the internet inside the building. But no, today's speaker is Sherri Gorman, or Sherri Kinsey Gorman, of the Kinsey Archery family. I know that Sherri has spoken with us before. It was very, very interesting. So I asked her to come back and share, you know, how Kinseys is doing. So I'll turn it over to Sherri.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. Just 1 second. So hopefully, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Got it. Good.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm sure for some of you, obviously, you may have known about our company, or even you may have been there when we spoke last time about Kinseys Archery products and how we got started. But just to kind of give you a little bit of background there, I think it's important to kind of know where we came from. And maybe even some of you, depending on how old you are, may know my grandfather, Vernon Kinsey, or have visited his store or shop way back when he first started. But anyway, for anybody who doesn't know it, Kinseys Archery Products was started by Vernon and Helen Kinsey, which are my grandparents. Vernon Kinsey worked in a shoe factory, and he shot archery as a hobby and as just an extracurricular activity. And then in 1948, so let me just go here. What is it? I'm just trying to move my screen down, and I'm not sure why it's not moving. Okay, hold on a second.
Why the page down button?
There we go. So in 1948, my grandfather was actually in an elevator accident. That was at his work at the shoe factory. They were taking a piece of equipment and taking it down to the bottom of the floor, and the elevator floor fell out, and he fell down through the shaft, and the equipment fell on his legs, and he became paralyzed at the age of 30. And at that point, there was no workers' compensation. So there was nothing that he could do as far as to earn money for his family or to even get money for this accident. So at that point, he was in the hospital for about 6 months. He was told he'd be lucky to live about 2 to 3 years, and he actually lived 51 years after that. So he lived to the age of 81. But during that time, they had to figure out what did he want to do as an occupation. So they would have allowed him to bring a sewing machine home from the factory, or they would have, he decided that maybe he wanted to try his passion of archery. So he had shot competitively, and some of his friends started to bring him archery products to repair and to fix. And honestly, that grew into a situation of where he decided he thought he could make that be an occupation. So he borrowed $50 from the bank, and they went into business as Kinseys to start doing archery equipment for people. So right there you can see that's the house that they lived on Chocolate Avenue. And what they did is they had to renovate that house because, again, there was no such thing as handicap accessibility. That was kind of a thing unheard of. So they had to put ramps and counters and different things into his house so that he could obviously function in his day-to-day functions, plus also do his work. And then what occurred was, as the business grew, they took a chicken coop that was beside them, and he renovated that into his archery shop. So that became the first location of Kinseys Archery Products. And there's a few other things that went on that kind of helped. As you can see on the screen there, there's some things that happened politically that kind of helped with the PA Game Commissioner creating a separate bow hunting season and different things like that. So then my dad graduated from high school, and because he was the only child and basically was told that the business would need him, he was not able to go to college, and he was told he would come into the family business. So he then entered the family business. And there you can see that where that house is there used to be a chicken coop, and that's what was renovated into what was the first facility for Kinseys Archery Products. My dad entered the business in 57, and then my mom also entered the business 2 years after that when she had graduated. So now it was a company of 4. My grandparents and my parents were now the existing employees of Kinseys Archery Products. And my grandfather, again, with some of the things that had happened, grew that he needed to hire his first employees. So he hired a few people to do what you call fletching of arrows. So for anybody who's not familiar with archery, that would be actually making the arrow that you shoot in your bow. And that was what he was kind of known for, was to be able to make that kind of product. And there you'll see in 1957, we did our first catalog, and that was the first catalog that got printed. And you can also see at that time, Colt Firearms gave us our first contract to build arrows for them. And so that was a big deal for him in the business, because that was his first stab at what we call distribution. My grandfather was all about dealing with the retail public, but my dad wanted to pursue the distribution side of things. And there you'll just see, that's a picture of my grandfather and my dad on the left. And then on the right, again, is my grandfather with Sherwood Chuck. And that is up at the Harrisburg Sports Show. So for any of you who go and attend that event that is usually in February, that was a stand that we had up at the Harrisburg Sports Show. Then he outgrew that facility. And so we went down to where is now the Mountjoy Thrift Shop. And that was our first location away from the homestead. So it was at 1960 Main Street. And I can remember that facility. I was born in 62. So I can remember going to that facility and actually playing in the boxes that were in the back of the area while my mom and dad would work and my grandparents would work. And so then again, the company grew again. And so then in 1973, we moved over to what we call the box factory, which was the old paper factory there in Mountjoy across from Turkey Hill. And we were in that facility for a while. We had a retail store that people could come into, and then we had the distribution part of it in the back part of the building. Again, a very antiquated building. It was kind of the right price when my grandparents bought that, but it was not very functional, or was it very friendly, obviously, but it did work. We then outgrew that facility. And so in 1982 and 84, this is a picture of my brother. So my brother and I joined the company. So now we had the third generation entering into the business. And my brother was on the sales and marketing side of it, and I was on the operations and financial side of things. So again, as we came in, and my brother did a lot to again increase the company, computerized the company at that point. We then in 1986 built where we're at our current location, which is out on Steelway Drive. So again, we moved all of our facilities out to here. Retail again was in the front of the building. Distribution was in the back. In 1998, we then decided that it was time we had outgrown that initial facility, and we decided if we wanted to maintain our retail, we need to build another facility. So we built the retail store right beside that distribution building, and that is obviously now called Kinseys Outdoors. And we expanded it from just archery to a 4-season sporting goods stores, which would include fishing, kayaking, camping, firearms, all those types of things to help spread out the seasonality of what we did. My grandfather was aware of this new facility, but he never got to see it. He had passed away before it was completely constructed. Then in 1999, in honor of my grandparents, we decided to have what we called Vernon and Helen's Kinseys Kids Day. So we do that every year in May. We did it for 20 years, but obviously this year we could not run it because of COVID and everything that has gone on. But that's a Saturday in May where we invite all of the community kids to come out, and all the activities are free for the kids for the day. So they can shoot archery, they can shoot shotgun, they can shoot BB gun. We bring a trout pond in, they can fish for trout. We feed them, and we just try to get them to get experience to the outdoors. And we do that in honor of my grandfather. And on the photo, you can see some of the kids have an orange shirt on there. Every year we design a new t-shirt that we give away about 400 free t-shirts to the first 400 people that come, or first 400 kids that come to that day. And it's very interesting. so often the kids will come back with last year's shirt, and then when we give them their new shirt, they take it off and put their new one on. So it's kind of a tradition that we've done. But that's a great event. I think the maximum we've ever had was about 1,000 kids. Then in 2003, we also do what's called a Kinseys dealer show. So we go up to the Hershey Convention Center and rent out the convention center. We bring all of our vendors into the convention center, all of our dealers to the lodge, and we do a weekend event for our dealers to see new products, for us to get to meet face-to-face to our customers, and just really to give an appreciation. We do a concert on Saturday night with usually a country artist and meals, and then we do seminars in the morning. But again, just another way of us reaching out to connect to our customer base and to our clients and dealers. And so again, distribution has pretty much just at this point has stayed all of Archery, even though the retail store has expanded into multiple product lines. So then, like everybody else, as you look to start to expand, we decided that we needed to be more than just distribution, and we wanted to try our own brands. So then in 2007, we came out with 4 or 5 additional brands that we now make. A lot of that gets resourced overseas and is made overseas. We do our own product development here in this location, but most of the product is done in China, some Asian countries, and things like that. So OMP, which is October Mountain Products, is more of your traditional recurve bow tool brand. Fin Finder is bow fishing. Blackheart is strings and cables and now gun cases. Elevation is Target Archery, which is quivers, cases. We tend to do very good and well in soft goods with our brands, and that's kind of our forte there, even though we've gone into some of the other hard goods. And then OEM, we do obviously make products for people that we then put their name on, and it's actually our product, but their name is put on it when it's sold. And of course, a lot of companies do that nowadays. In 2011, we outgrew our current facility plus the retail store, so we put up another warehouse building directly across the street at 1679, so that we were able to now move all of distribution over to that building. Retail stayed where it was, and then our current facility got expanded with office spaces. And it still has we still have a part of a warehouse here, but probably half the building is offices. The other half is still warehouse, but predominantly all of our warehousing is over at the new location at 1679. And then in 2011 and 2012, my children, which is Kelsey and Justin in the back, joined the company. So we now are in the 4th generation of Kinseys. And Justin is on the sales and marketing side of things, and Kelsey is on the operations finance side of things. And in the front is my grandma and my dad. Then in 2018, again, as we look to say, how can we expand, how can we grow, and where can we go to, we decided to buy our largest competitor. So we acquired a competitor in Louisville, Kentucky. They were currently the name of PAPE, and then we incorporated them into Kinseys South. So we now have a location down in Kentucky. We try to, actually I was just there earlier this week, got back yesterday, but we try to have somebody go down there. One of us as owners probably about every 4 to 6 weeks. And it has been a great way as diversification is important, and as you look to service the country, it obviously gave us another shipping point to be able to service pretty much 90% of the country in 2 days, depending on where the customer would exist and where we would ship out of. So that was our first acquisition. That was very obviously interesting and challenging. We've never done that before, but I think, you know, as we're now almost this coming April of 2021 would be 3 years that we've had them, and it is going quite well. We did have an individual that was a friend of the family's. He was a football friend with my son, Justin. He actually is running our warehouse down there in Kentucky. He went to school at Shippensburg. As we were looking to acquire, it was pretty confident that we wanted to have somebody from here at least go down there and help run that facility. And so it worked out for us. So he actually moved down there, and he is now running our warehouse facility down there. And then, of course, we decided, how can we grow again? Because we kind of expanded in the archery industry at this point. To be honest, there used to be, probably back in about 20 years ago, there was probably 20, 25 distributors. There's currently pretty much 2 of us left. After we had bought Papes, it would be ourselves, and obviously Lancaster Archery, who obviously is right down the road from us, is predominantly the 2 largest distributors in the archery industry right now. And the archery industry has gone through its hurdles. It's definitely not growing. It's a mature market. License sales have not been great. They've been declining. So it's just not a super large market. But you know, for us, it's about 2,500 customers that we deal with. We do deal with some big box stores and big mass merchants and some of those types of things. And we do fulfillment and e-com side of things. But again, it's been somewhat of a, I would say, a stagnant market. So we decided if we need to get some expansion, the next logical product category expansion would be into the firearms world. So we just entered that the end of 2019 in the beginning of 2020 here. And so we went from about 18,000 items to 30,000 items now that we would stock in our warehouse distribution. So obviously you can see that was a huge mountain for us to climb, to add the product and do everything there that was required. Obviously there's more regulations and things like that, but that has been a good expansion for us, and we see that to be a huge growth opportunity for us for at least the next several years as we get into that market. That market has about 20 other distributors that are main players in that industry, but we feel like we can compete well. And about 60% of our current customers that we were dealing with carried firearms. So it was a very natural expansion for us to be able to expand into that area. If you go next, if you say, well, how did we get to where we got to? You know, if I had a couple words to describe my grandfather, and obviously I have huge admiration for him and who he was and what he stood for. You know, for us, it's all about our heritage. It really matters to us about where we came from, and that we continue to support that and making sure we are being the company that Vernon originally started, even though it looks different now and business operates differently, having that what I'm going to call core values of what he thought was important, which was servicing the customer, taking care of the customer, having a passion for what you do, and then making sure you do it well and stay within your niche and always know and be humble with wherever you get to. And he was a man who was very successful, but probably one of the most humble persons that I've ever had an opportunity to meet. Our mission is just simple. We help people fulfill their passion for the outdoors. So any way that we can do that, I would say probably 80% of our current employees all are hunters. That's not required to work here, but most of our people, employees, do enjoy the outdoors and participate in the events that products that we are selling to. So that does really help. And the values, again, we talked about it. It's my grandfather was very committed. My grandfather, with his injury, was in a lot of pain his whole life, but he literally worked up until the day. He worked Friday, had a heart attack Saturday, passed away Saturday evening. So he was very committed to his work. It's what he loved to do. Integrity was at the utmost. I've had numerous people over the years come and say, hey, you know, your grandfather, my bow broke or something happened, and he just replaced it for free. No questions. He just took care of me. And I've had countless amount of people come up and tell me that. So again, it was a business for him, but it was about serving the people first. He believed in partnerships. That was very important to him. He always believed in doing things right for the right reasons. And he obviously had a great team of people who worked with him and for him. And we have very dedicated employees that have continued to make us be very successful as we've had a chance to kind of navigate through the business world, which I'm sure all of you, you know, have understood. It's tough. Business is not easy. surely not as easy as it was when I entered 35 years ago. And to be competitive and to stay current and where you're at, you definitely need to be changing and growing and adapting. And I think as we've continued to do that, we've continued to do that quite well and continue to look for opportunities. We love being here in the community. It's a great opportunity to be in Mountjoy and Lancaster County, and we're just proud to be part of the community that's here. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
First off, between you guys and Hosteders, you gobble up a large portion of my disposable income, which is but as everything evolves, going back to the archery, which is the bread and butter, you do see it falling, but as areas get more and more congested and firearm hunting becomes impractical, do you see it making a resurgence?
Well, you know, it's very interesting. Through this COVID situation, archery has really taken a nice spike right now for the last 3 months. And we have always said archery is completely reverse of the economy. So when our economy would be somewhat in a recession, we have always grown. When the economy is booming, we've always flatlined. And some of that is I think disposable income by people is being spent on more expensive things, higher end things, bigger trips and things like that. And since people have really been confined to what they can do as far as extracurricular activities and travel, we've seen a huge increase in people wanting to do recreational archery, not necessarily hunting, but just target shooting and those types of things. So we really have seen a nice little growth here in the last 3 to 4 months.
May I ask a question here, Dave Hallowell?
Sure.
I was thinking of your company getting into the health field, and wondered there are many related issues to what you're doing already, by filling some of the gaps. And I think you'd already be able to jump into the health, food and health and athletics and all that kind of anchor.
Yeah, it's so I think for us, what we've thought and dabbled in a lot of different things as we strategically have kind of determined what paths we would take and where we would go. And we've talked a lot about going outside of the hunting industry, and then we've talked about kind of staying in it and maybe going to sideline things that kind of connect to it but aren't necessarily part of it. And we keep coming back to, at this point, we tend to know hunting and the outdoors the best, and we feel like that's the best place for us to stay. What I do see us probably looking to expand into next would be what I'd call 3PL services, where we would obviously not own the inventory and we would just pick, pack, and ship for people who don't necessarily have the facilities or have the infrastructure to do that. We do have one manufacturer that we're going to be doing that in here in June. That'll be new for us. We're going to run that out of our Kentucky facility, but that's a clothing line in the outdoor world that we're going to try. But again, we see that being another avenue or strategic area that we could expand into. Whether we pick up other products, again, it all depends. It's, we're going to soon be out of space over in that facility where we're at as far as the first floor. What I see us doing probably next is adding a mezzanine or two over there so we could pick additional items out of there. But again, 30,000 items is a fair amount of items.
Thank you.
Sherri, I have a question. This is Kevin Engel. So I'm not a hunter and a fisherman or a archery person, so I'm not in that category, but I do love the outdoors, and I love spending time in the outdoors. And so if I would go to your retail shop, what things would I be able to find that would help me with that experience?
Yeah, so if you go to the outdoors, we're not going to be where you'd have the hiking and things like that. I mean, we have some things, but it's going to be very limited if you're looking for backpacking, camping, and those types of things. We have some, but we just found that market category is very hard to compete against the Walmarts, the Kmarts, Kmart's probably not a good example, but some of those type stores, we couldn't buy at large enough volumes, Kevin, to be able to compete well to the consumer. And so that's another thing as we look at product lines, we just have to make sure we can compete and it makes sense, because obviously if I can't buy at some of the big margins that some of our competitors buy at, then I can't sell it to you at a good price, and it just doesn't make sense. So, we have some kayaks, so that kind of got out of the hunting area. The kayaks have done well, and not necessarily does everybody fish that gets a kayak. Right. We would have, like I said, a little bit of, we've got some binoculars and things like that for bird watching if you want to do that kind of stuff. But it's not going to be, 85 to 90% of our store is going to be around hunting, fishing, trapping, those types of things, fishing, that type of thing.
Yep. Thank you.
Sherri, this is Steph Dupler. Are you a hunter, fisherman? Are you an archer yourself?
So very interesting. So everybody in my family is but me. So I did do it when I was 12 and 13, but honestly, I was involved in a lot of team sports. And so for me, I was always busy training and doing those types of things. And honestly, because so many of our employees are hunters, when hunting season came, we needed somebody to stay and work. So honestly, that became my brother and I. So my father and mother were very much involved. My grandparents were very much involved. My husband's very much involved. My children are very much involved. My daughter-in-law and son-in-law are very much involved. But myself, I have shot, but I do not shoot repetitively. I like to go see the deer. I'm not necessarily one who's hunting the deer right now. I like to eat deer and the wild game, but I per se have not participated a lot.
Debbie, Sherri's a championship basketball player.
That's got to be Ken.
That's right.
And Sherri, how many employees do you have?
So here at the PA location, we're about 120, and then we got another 25 in Louisville. So we're real close to about 150.
I have a question. Brenda Kreider-Barlett. When I was in high school here at Etown in the 70s, we always had an archery unit. I don't know if you had that at Donegal. And I have no idea whether Kinsey provided that equipment. But I'm wondering, you talked about your kids' day. Perhaps that's something where you can approach the school and say, I don't know if they still have an archery unit or not.
Donegal does have an archery unit because Dave Eichler, now I think he just retired as a teacher from Donegal, but he was very much into the outdoors and that type of thing. So he actually ran a club that we sponsored that then shot competitively in the high school. There was a national high school tournament that he took some archers to, and we sponsored them and had given them some of the equipment and some of the things, the shirts and stuff that they needed to wear. There's an organization called the ATA, which is the Archery Trade Association, and they actually ran a school program where schools could apply for a grant to get a complete package of equipment, which was bows, arrows, targets, and things like that. And that did very well. I would say that was more like, maybe 5 to 8 years ago. They did a big promotion, and a lot of schools took advantage of that. And we supplied a lot of the equipment. A lot of the vendors would supply free equipment, and then we supplied some of the free things in it, and then we'd send them out to the schools. I'm not up to date on that right now because, again, as we continue to grow, I get removed from some of the sales side of things and on the other side. But I have not heard a lot. I think the ATA, again, funded that for several years, and then it kind of dropped off. But we do have some of the state organizations like the Oklahoma Wildlife. They are running some archery programs. The Pennsylvania Game Commission, again, some archery programs where kids can go to different areas, different events, and hold classes like that. We do hold archery lessons down at KO. So down at Kinseys Outdoors, if youth want to learn, we do. They can sign up. We do that over the winter. We do also do a video interactive league for adults down there, and that's run over the winter time. So there is a multitude of some different things that people can do to get involved in archery.
Sherri, this is Harold Engel calling. I'm just checking to see, in what ways have you been impacted by the coronavirus?
So honestly, I think we all probably felt this. You know, when everything started happening there in March, I didn't know if we were going to be open, closed. You know, we just had no idea what was going to happen. Honestly, we have been extremely blessed and extremely fortunate. Because of carrying the firearms, we were considered an essential business. And so we have been able to remain open from a distribution side of things and from a retail side of things. Now, to protect our people, we did curbside only at retail, so we did not have people going into our store. And we did that for several weeks. And in fact, we just opened our store back up like last week. We opened it back up that we would allow people into the store. Actually, it's 2 weeks that we allowed people back into our store again. But honestly, we were well supported by the community. We had curbside business all day long. We had people going to our website to buy product. And honestly, with the events and everything that is going on, firearms have sold extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
So we really have not been harshly impacted. We did not lay anybody off. We were able to maintain everybody working. Obviously, all of our office crew that could work from home is working from home and still is working from home. So pretty much our office staff is all out of here. But the warehouse, we split shifts. They actually worked every other day so that, again, if somebody would have gotten the virus, we wouldn't be shut down. Now they're all back together again. But yeah, it was challenging, and it surely was stressful for people because you just didn't know. Every day it seemed like something was changing.
Sherri, this is Scott Little. I have a question for you. First of all, Lancaster County is going green next Friday, so that's got to be some good news for you.
Yeah.
Secondly, I'm not a hunter, but I do some work with the Game Commission and Fish and Boat, and I know both commissions are concerned and have been for a little while about the next generation of hunters and the next generation of fishermen. You've kind of talked about that, but that's a real life concern. My grandparents on Thanksgiving would go out after lunch or dinner and start tracking for the next day, or the next Monday, I should say. And obviously, I don't know that happens anymore. But could you talk about the future of these sports?
Yeah, and you are 100% right. That is, again, why we looked at expanding into other product lines, because hunting tends to be an activity that somebody previous to you had to be involved in, and you learn that from the past. It's not like somebody has not had any experience to hunting says, I think I want to hunt. It's really a heritage legacy type thing, and we are losing that for a couple reasons. There's just so many activities going on for so many people that they're just pulled in a lot of directions and they don't have the time. The land is an issue. A lot of land obviously is posted, so if you don't have land to hunt on, it's very difficult to get onto some of the state game lands, and some of those things is just full and people don't want to do that. And we're just finding kids, you know, it takes some effort and energy. You got to get out, you got to hike in the woods, you got to practice if you want to do those things. So you're right. We are very concerned. And again, that organization, the ATA that I talked about, I mean, they are trying to do a fair amount to promote archery. I know there's various things that they have on their website to kind of encourage that. I will say, with COVID and people not having to stay home and be kind of more confined, I can't tell you the number of stories that we've heard of people that said, my grandfather used to hunt, I never really got into it, but you know, it's something we can do as a family. What do we need to do to get restarted and do those things? So I do think you will see a resurgence in some hunting activity. Not only that, it's just another way. Obviously, I think people have become a little afraid of what happens to the food supply and some of those things. So I do think we'll have some more people engaging in the sport, at least if not for long term, at least here in the interim. And hopefully if we get some people exposed to it, they will like it. We have found it's more that people aren't exposed to it. Once they do it, they like it. They just never try it. So they really don't know what it's like or what they might be missing.
Dave Hallowell one more last time. I'm just hopeful that we can invite you to, or some of your staff to become Rotarians if they are not already. So exposure is that way too. Thanks.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
This is Glenn Boutte. I don't have a question, but I got kudos for your employees. I've been a customer for years, and a lot of my friends are. And you know, if you need something and you're not really sure exactly what to do, you're the place to go, because they'll take the time and they'll listen to what your needs are, and they'll find the right bow, find the right firearm, find the right piece of equipment. You can't get that very many other places. So that's definitely an asset you guys have.
Well, thank you. And I will make sure I pass that along, because they work really hard. And obviously, you know, people always hear when somebody is displeased with what we've done or how we've done it. So the good, positive information, that's great to hear. And I will definitely pass that along. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Sherri? Sherri, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it back over here. Is Bill still on?
I'm still here. No,
Okay.
thank you, Sherri.
Back to you, Bill.
Thank you very much, Sherri. That was very interesting. Thank you for sharing that today. I learned a little bit more about the history of the area. That was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
If there's nothing else to come before us, we stand adjourned until Wednesday, when we are doing the induction ceremony. So please join us for the induction ceremonies. And have a good weekend, everybody. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.
See you guys.
Sherri.
Thank you.